The Brahma Sutras, also known as Vedanta Sutras, are one of the most important texts in Hindu philosophy. They are a set of aphorisms or concise statements that summarize the teachings of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. The sutras were written by the ancient sage Vyasa, who is also known for his authorship of the Mahabharata. The Brahma Sutras are organized into 4 chapters, each of which addresses a different aspect of the nature of ultimate reality, Brahman. The Brahma Sutras are often considered to be the foundation of Advaita Vedanta, one of the major schools of Hindu philosophy. Advaita Vedanta teaches that there is only one ultimate reality, Brahman, and that the individual self, Jiva, is ultimately identical with Brahman. This teaching is based on a close reading of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, which are the primary sources for the Brahma Sutras. Shankaracharya, also known as Adi Shankara, is one of the most influential philosophers in the history of Hinduism. He was born in the 8th century CE and is credited with the revival of Hindu philosophy and the re-establishment of the Vedic tradition. Shankaracharya wrote numerous commentaries on the major texts of Hindu philosophy, including the Brahma Sutras. His commentary on the Brahma Sutras is one of the most detailed and insightful interpretations of the text. In this essay, we will provide an overview of the 4 chapters of the Brahma Sutras and a commentary on Shankaracharya's interpretation of each chapter. The first chapter of the Brahma Sutras is titled Samanvaya, which means harmony or coherence. This chapter sets out to establish the unity of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita with respect to their teachings on Brahman. The first sutra of this chapter states, "Now, therefore, the inquiry into Brahman." Shankaracharya's commentary on this sutra explains that the purpose of the Brahma Sutras is to provide a systematic inquiry into the nature of Brahman. He explains that the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita contain many different teachings on Brahman, and that the Brahma Sutras are meant to harmonize these teachings and provide a clear understanding of Brahman. Shankaracharya goes on to explain that Brahman is the ultimate reality that underlies all of creation. He argues that Brahman is not a physical object or an idea, but rather a pure consciousness that pervades everything. Shankaracharya also emphasizes that Brahman is beyond human comprehension and can only be understood through spiritual practice and meditation. Chapter 2 of the Brahma Sutras, titled Avirodha, addresses the apparent contradictions that arise in the teachings of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. The first sutra of this chapter states, "And on account of the absence of contradiction." Shankaracharya's commentary on this sutra emphasizes the importance of interpreting the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita in a way that is consistent with their overall teachings. He argues that while some individual statements in these texts may appear to contradict one another, the texts as a whole are coherent and consistent. One example of an apparent contradiction in the Upanishads is the teaching that Brahman is both with form and without form. Shankaracharya explains that this apparent contradiction can be resolved by understanding that Brahman is both immanent and transcendent. Brahman is immanent in the world of form, as everything in the world is a manifestation of Brahman. However, Brahman is also transcendent, beyond all form and attributes. Another apparent contradiction in the Upanishads is the teaching that the self is both the same as Brahman and different from Brahman. Shankaracharya explains that this contradiction can be resolved by understanding that the self is both identical with Brahman in its true nature, and distinct from Brahman in its individual manifestation. This is similar to the concept of a wave being both identical with the ocean in its essence, and distinct from the ocean in its individual form. Shankaracharya also addresses apparent contradictions in the Bhagavad Gita, such as the teaching on action and renunciation. He explains that the Bhagavad Gita teaches that action can be a means to liberation when it is performed without attachment to the fruits of action. Renunciation, on the other hand, is a means to liberation for those who are not able to perform action in this way. Overall, Shankaracharya's commentary on Chapter 2 emphasizes the importance of understanding the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita in a holistic and consistent manner, rather than getting caught up in apparent contradictions or isolated statements. Chapter 3 of the Brahma Sutras is titled Sadhana, which means spiritual practice. This chapter outlines the means by which one can attain knowledge of Brahman. The first sutra of this chapter states, therefore, the desire to know Brahman. Shankaracharya's commentary on this sutra emphasizes that the desire to know Brahman is the first step on the spiritual path. This desire must be accompanied by a sense of urgency and a willingness to make sacrifices in order to attain knowledge of Brahman. The means of attaining knowledge of Brahman are outlined in subsequent sutras in this chapter. These means include the practice of meditation, the study of the scriptures, and the guidance of a qualified teacher. Shankaracharya emphasizes that all of these means are necessary for the attainment of knowledge of Brahman. Regarding the practice of meditation, Shankaracharya emphasizes the importance of concentration and the need to withdraw one's mind from the distractions of the world. He also emphasizes the need for the practice of self-control and the cultivation of virtues such as nonviolence and truthfulness. Regarding the study of the scriptures, Shankaracharya emphasizes the need to study under a qualified teacher who can provide guidance and clarify the meaning of the texts. He also emphasizes the importance of studying the texts in a systematic and disciplined manner. Overall, Shankaracharya's commentary on Chapter 3 emphasizes the need for a comprehensive approach to spiritual practice, including both external means such as the guidance of a teacher and the study of the scriptures, as well as internal means such as meditation and self-control. Chapter 4 of the Bramha Sutras is titled Phala, which means fruit or result. This chapter outlines the results that come from attaining knowledge of Brahman. The first sutra of this chapter states, therefore, the knowledge of Brahman is the highest goal. Shankaracharya's commentary on this sutra emphasizes that the attainment of knowledge of Brahman is the highest goal of human life. He argues that all other goals, such as wealth and power, are ultimately unsatisfying and temporary. Only the attainment of knowledge of Brahman can provide lasting fulfillment and liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The results of attaining knowledge of Brahman are outlined in subsequent sutras in this chapter. These results include liberation from the cycle of birth and death, the attainment of supreme bliss, and the realization of one's true nature as Brahman. Regarding liberation from the cycle of birth and death, Shankaracharya explains that the attainment of knowledge of Brahman breaks the cycle of samsara, or the cycle of birth and death. This liberation is not just a temporary liberation, but a permanent one, as the knowledge of Brahman removes the ignorance that is the cause of samsara. Regarding the attainment of supreme bliss, Shankaracharya explains that the realization of one's true nature as Brahman brings about a state of supreme bliss, which is beyond the limited pleasures of the world. Regarding the realization of one's true nature as Brahman, Shankaracharya emphasizes that this is the ultimate goal of spiritual practice. He explains that the realization of one's true nature as Brahman involves the removal of all false identifications with the body, mind, and ego. This realization brings about a state of freedom and transcendence. Overall, Shankaracharya's commentary on Chapter 4 emphasizes the importance and benefits of attaining knowledge of Brahman. He argues that this knowledge is the highest goal of human life, and that its attainment brings about liberation, supreme bliss, and the realization of one's true nature as Brahman.